Well, good afternoon everyone, and welcome once again to Ed's Orchids. I've been asked a few times with requests to show how I grow my Paphs. I'm sure I've done this before, but I'll go through it again, it can't do any harm. And you know, I've only got three genera mainly, you know, the Frags, the Paphs and the Angraecums. So what I'm proposing to do is just do a short one on Paphs, how I keep them, just do one on Frags, how I keep them, and then another one on Angraecums, and then might take me forward to showing a few blooms. Okay, so let's start talking about Paphs. If you've read many books, you'll have read that they are terrestrial or semi-terrestrial. Well, they're definitely not terrestrial, and they're only semi because they never grow their roots into the ground. That means growing into the soil. They only get soil washed over the roots in the monsoon seasons with the rain. They grow in the fallen debris on the forest floors from dead leaves and branches and mosses and stuff like that. And so all Paphs, to my mind, should be treated as epiphytes, which is a quick drying after a good watering. This is why I put them in a light mix compost, and that's to say one which allows water to pass through it very quickly and which allows them to dry quickly, which is very good for Paphs. Another way I accomplish treating them as epiphytes is by using these open pond baskets I use. And it's just like an ordinary plastic pot with big holes drilled up, only this is absolutely covered in small holes that allows the air to go in. Another way I accomplish this quick drying off process is that I use heated sand beds on a lot of them, mainly the multiflorals, where I can you know, water them, put them on the heated sand bed, and probably water them in another 2 or 3 days time. They require medium to high light, and in this part of the world, in winter in the northern hemisphere, I will give them as much light as possible. Now, Paphs need plenty of air movement, because the stomata, which is, or which are rather, small pockets under the leaves of orchids, and all plants for that matter, they regulate the gases and the moisture that they take in and take out. Now, most plants have these little stomata which open and close and open and close. The thing is that Paphs don't. Paphs are continually open, so you've got to be very, very careful of the conditions. So that's why I give them plenty of air movement, which helps with the fungus and bacteria to, well, for want of a better word, to get rid of it to a large extent. Well, I've mentioned it before, but how much light do I give them? Well, in summer I tend to put a little bit of shading over the greenhouse, but not much. I let as much light in as possible. In winter I give it all the light that they can give them, and then I supplement it for 4 hours a day with artificial lighting. But light depends on the grower and what you want. And I presume most of us want to grow flowers. So if flowers is the objection, it's not the objection, if flowers is the object, then give them as much light as you can. It will improve the flower count, but your leaves will tend to go on the a bit greeny yellow, if you know what I mean. Now if you want the opposite, you don't give them as much light, you keep them in the shade, then the opposite will happen. You'll get luscious green leaves, but probably the flower count will be less. So I give mine as much light as possible. I mean, you get the things like the Paphs philippinense, which grows in full sun in the wild, and you know, the leaves on those are bright yellow. So try and give them as much light as you can. And then you think, well, how do I water them? Well, I water them exactly when they need it. That's the only time I can say. And mine on the heated sandbeds, they dry out very, very quickly. So I need to water them sort of every 2 or 3 days. I don't feed very often. And when I do feed, probably once a fortnight. I feed at about 180 parts per million on the TDS, and the heater's just come on, that's the noise you can hear. And but I do like to flush regularly, very regularly. I like to flush, you know, to keep the salts away from the roots. As they all know, roots are far more important than anything else really. You've got good roots, and well, you know you've got good roots if the top of the plant's growing well. You know it's doing all right underneath the plant. And yeah, well, what we'll do now, I'll just show you a few of my plants and the growths on them, and that's the way I do it. This is one of the smaller Paphs I've got, and this one I won the best species in the show last year with this, and 2 beautiful flowers on. You must have seen it if you watch my videos. And this is Paphs barbatum, growing very, very well. You know, in the baskets with holes in, watered, not fed very often. Almost allow it to dry out, because as you know, plants will live a little bit longer dry than they will wet. So with Paphs it's best to water them when they're almost dry. So that's a barbatum. Then we have here a multifloral, which is a Lady Isabel, a cross between Stony Eye and Rothschildianum. Plenty of nice growths on this one, and I'm expecting this to flower in spring, early summer. You see one there, and growth there, another growth there, some round the side here. So done exactly the same thing, a free growing compost, and water just the same when they almost become dry. So I can't do any more about Paphs like that. Treat them all the same way, and you'll be alright with them. You can manage, I'm sure. As regards feeds, I don't use any commercial foods at all now. Well, I'm talking commercial foods. I mean commercial foods for orchids specifically. I use calcium nitrate, which helps to take up nutrients, and it's the easiest form of calcium that the plants can take up. When I use that, the pH is around about 6.2 to 6.8, something like that. And apart from that, when I give them a feed, I'll give them a bit of phosphorus or tomerite, or stuff like that, which you can buy quite cheaply at the stores. So that's about all I can say about Paphs. If I've missed anything out, I'm sorry. I'm sure you'll come back and question me about it. So until I get onto the frags, thank you for watching. Hope it's been of some interest to some people, and I'll see you later. Bye.